movie review lovers friends. Today, I am going to describe the movie story of the Santa Claus. Now let's talk about it. As we know that The Santa Claus is a 1994 American Christmas fantasy comedy film directed by John Pasquin and written by Leo Benvenuti and Steve Rudnick. The first installment in the Santa Claus franchise, it stars Tim Allen as Scott Calvin, a divorced marketing executive who accidentally causes Santa Claus to fall from his roof to his death on Christmas Eve, inadvertently agreeing to a contract that forces him to take up the mantle. The Santa Claus premiered at Hollywood on November 5, 1994, and was theatrically released in the United States on November 11. It grossed $190.3 million worldwide against a $22 million budget and received positive reviews from critics, and it has since become a Christmas-time staple among viewers. Its success led to two sequels, The Santa Claus 2, 2002, and The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, 2006, both of which were commercially successful despite the former's mixed and the latter's negative reception. The franchise continued with a follow-up series, The Santa Clauses, which premiered November 16, 2022 on Disney+. The film was originally going to be released under the Hollywood Pictures banner, but following positive test screenings among children, it was transferred to the Walt Disney Pictures banner. Scott Calvin, a 37-year-old marketing director for a toy company at Lakeside, Illinois and divorced father, prepares to spend Christmas Eve with his young son, 8-year-old Charlie. He wants Charlie to maintain his belief in Santa Claus, despite not believing himself. Scott's ex-wife Laura and her psychiatrist husband Dr. Neil Miller stopped believing in Santa at a young age and feel it is time for the boy to do the same. Scott and Charlie are awakened that night by a noise on the roof. While investigating, Scott startles Santa Claus, who falls off the roof and is believed to be dead. Santa's body vanishes, leaving behind his familiar suit and a business card instructing the reader to wear his suit should anything unfortunate happen to him, and the reindeer will respond accordingly. Scott and Charlie find Santa's sleigh and reindeer on the roof. At Charlie's request, Scott reluctantly dons the suit and delivers gifts before the reindeer take them to the North Pole. The father learns that, by wearing the suit, he is subject to a legal technicality known as the Santa Clause and has accepted all of the late Santa's duties and responsibilities. Head elf Bernard gives Scott 11 months to get his affairs in order before reporting back to the North Pole on Thanksgiving. Overwhelmed, he changes into the pajamas provided to him and falls asleep. The next morning, Scott awakes in his own bed and believes the previous events were a dream but realizes he is still wearing the pajamas given to him. Charlie is proud that his father is the new Santa Claus, and this arouses concern in Laura, Neil, and the school staff. Scott, not wanting to destroy Charlie's newfound enthusiasm, asks him to keep their North Pole trip a secret. Over the next year, Scott starts to take on Santa's appearance and habits. He gains weight and develops an increased fondness for sweets, particularly milk and cookies. He develops a white beard that instantly regrows after shaving, and his hair turns white no matter how much he dyes it. During a meeting with his company, Scott argues against a proposal to advertise a toy military tank by showing Santa riding it, insisting that he must use his sleigh. He also begins to recount naughty and nice children by name when he sees them. After Laura and Neil witness children wanting to sit on Scott's lap at Charlie's soccer game, they assume Scott is deliberately misleading Charlie, so get Scott's visitation rights suspended. On Thanksgiving, a distraught Scott goes to Laura and Neil's house to see Charlie one last time. The boy, desperate to help him realize how important he is to the children of the world, shows him a magical snow globe, a gift from Bernard, convincing him that he really is Santa. When Laura and Neil allow the two a minute to talk to alone, Bernard appears and transports father and son to the North Pole. Thinking Scott has kidnapped Charlie, Laura and Neil summon the police. Scott sets out to deliver gifts with Charlie in tow. Upon arriving at Laura and Neil's home, he is arrested inside the house while Charlie waits for him in the sleigh. The elves eventually break him out of jail. When Scott returns Charlie to his house, he insists he spend Christmas Eve with Laura and Neil. His heartfelt speech to Charlie about the importance of everyone in the family convinces Laura and Neil that he is Santa. Laura burns the court documents suspending Scott's visitation rights and tells him he can visit anytime. According to Bernard, anytime Charlie shakes his snow globe, his father will appear. Before leaving, Scott gives Laura and Neil the two presents that they never got as children, which caused their disbelief in Santa. Scott's takeoff from the roof proves his identity to the police and various witnesses outside the house. After Scott leaves, Charlie summons him back with the snow globe. So, Laura agrees to let them go together in the sleigh to finish delivering the presents. The script was written on spec by Steve Rudnick and Leo Benvenuti. 5. In November 1992, it was announced Hollywood Pictures had acquired the script as a potential starring vehicle for Tim Allen. 5. The film was shot at Raleigh Studios in Hollywood, California. 6. And on location in the Greater Toronto Area, with Oakville serving as the city of Lakeside, Illinois. The reindeer used in the film were all from the Toronto Zoo. The trains used in the North Pole scene and the start of the film were all made by LGB. 7. Eric Lloyd had to wear fake teeth and part of his dialogue was rearranged after he knocked out his teeth in an accident on a day off. 8. Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, 9, were offered the role of Scott Calvin, but both turned it down. Chase declined due to scheduling conflicts, and Murray did not want to do another holiday-themed movie after doing Scrooged. Tom Selleck, Robin Williams, Tom Hanks, and Mel Gibson were also considered for the role. Jeff Daniels, Stanley Tucci, Christopher McDonald, and Broadley Whitford were considered for the role of Neil Miller. Patricia Richardson, Alan's co-star on Home Improvement, Patricia Clarkson, Patricia Heaton, and Kate Burton were considered for the role of Laura Miller. The film grossed $19.3 million in its opening weekend, finishing second at the U.S. box office behind Interview with the Vampire, which opened with $36 million, $13.14. In its second weekend it grossed $17.1 million, finishing third. Over the three-day Thanksgiving frame it then made $20.4 million, peaked at number 1. 15. In November 2020, with the COVID-19 pandemic limiting new releases, The Santa Claus was re-released into 1,581 theaters and grossed $711,000. Freeform and AMC have played the film on television during the holiday season with record ratings. Critical response. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 73% based on 59 reviews, with an average rating of May 9, 10. The website's critics' consensus reads, "The Santa Claus is utterly undemanding, but it's firmly rooted in the sort of good old-fashioned holiday spirit missing from too many modern Yuletide films." 19. On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 57 out of 100, based on reviews from 13 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. 20. Audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade, A- on scale of A+ to F. Phone number controversy. At one point in the film, a brief exchange between Scott and Laura takes place in which Laura hands Scott a piece of paper with Neil's mother's phone number on it. Scott then says 1-800 spank me. I know that number. At the time, this was not a fictitious telephone number, but was used by a sex line belonging to American Telmet. While the number itself was toll-free and instructed callers under the age of 18 to hang up, it encouraged listeners to choose from a series of premium-rate 900 numbers. This coincidence was discovered by two young children in Concord Township, Ohio, after seeing the film in theaters in December 1994. A Disney spokesperson replied, "I can't imagine that people would call that number 25, and the film was not recalled from its theatrical run as some requested." However, after the film was released on VHS, Disney received complaints from parents whose children had dialed the number and then racked up hundreds of dollars in phone bills. Disney's legal affairs department attempted to buy out the 1-800 spank me service and disconnect the number, without success. In 1997, Disney informed the father of a 10-year-old girl who had incurred charges of $250, equivalent to $489.69 in 2024. To the line that future printings of the home video would remove the line, as well as future broadcasts of the film on the Disney Channel. 27, beginning with the 1999 DVD release. The exchange was removed from all future United States home media releases of the film, though it remains in the earlier released VHS and Laserdisc releases, and most digital downloads. The line is also removed from the Disney Plus print. On television broadcasts, the number is changed to 1-800-pound. American film production label of Walt Disney Studios, founded and owned by the Walt Disney Company. Established on February 1, 1989, by Disney CEO Michael Eisner and studio chief Jeffrey Katzenberg, Hollywood Pictures was founded to increase the film output of the Walt Disney Studios and release films similar to those of Touchstone Pictures. These films, featuring more mature themes, were targeted at adult audiences, unlike the family-oriented productions of the studio's flagship Walt Disney Pictures division. After years of hiatus, the label was closed on April 27, 2007. The studio's most commercially successful film was M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense, which grossed over $670 million worldwide upon its release in 1999. 1. History. Hollywood Pictures Corporation was incorporated on March 30, 1984, 2, and was activated on February 1, 1989. Ricardo Mestres was appointed the division's first president, moving from Disney's Touchstone Pictures. The division was formed to create opportunities for up-and-coming executives and to double Disney's feature film output in order to fill the gap left by the contraction in the industry, which included the closure of NGN/UA's United Artists and financial problems at Lori Martella Pictures and De Laurentiis Entertainment Group. With Touchstone aligned with Hollywood Pictures, the two Disney production divisions would share the same marketing and distribution staffs. 3. Hollywood Pictures was expected to be producing 12 films a year by 1991 and to share funding from the Silver Screen Partners. 4. The company's first release was Arachnophobia on July 18, 1990. 1. On October 23, 1990, the Walt Disney Company formed Touchwood Pacific Partners to supplant the Silver Screen Partnership series as their movie studio's primary funding source. After the collapse of their then recently renewed deal at Paramount Pictures, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer moved their production company to Hollywood Pictures on January 18, 1991. The division issued primarily inexpensive comedies for the first 6 years with a few box office flops, amongst them Holy Matrimony, Aspen Extreme, Super Mario Bros. 7, Swing Kids, Blame It on the Bellboy, Born Yesterday, and Guilty as Sin. The division only had one box office success, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and one critical success, The Joy Luck Club, which did not outweigh the general anemic box office record of the division. On April 26, 1994, Mestres was forced to resign after the lackluster performance of the division. Mestres moved to long-term production deal with the studio. 8. On June 27, 1994, Michael Linton was appointed as new division president after moving from the Disney Publishing Group, where he was senior vice president and oversaw domestic publishing units, including Hyperion Books. 9. Mestres left Linton a few potential hits: Robert Redford's Quiz Show, the Sarah Jessica Parker Antonio Banderas comedy Miami Rhapsody, and Dangerous Minds, starring Michelle Pfeiffer. 7. In 1997, Linton left for a position at Penguin Group. 10. When Linton left, it was briefly transferred to a releasing-only entity, making pictures by third parties, as well as Caravan Pictures and Synergy, and its development slate was transferred to Touchstone Pictures, but David Vogel, who was president of Walt Disney Pictures, took on the studio by producing films again. 11. In 1998, the 3 units were transferred to the Buena Vista Motion Picture Group and its development slate of projects by Hollywood Pictures, such as Bicentennial Man and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, was transferred to Touchstone. 12. By 2001, Hollywood Pictures had produced 80 films, but its operation had been phased out and its management was merged with that of the flagship Walt Disney Pictures studio. 1. After being dormant for 5 years, the brand was reactivated for low-budget genre films, 1. Films released by the repurposed Hollywood Pictures were 2 horror films, Stay Alive, released on March 24, 2006, 1, and Primeval, released on January 12, 2007, and 1 thriller, The Invisible, released on April 27, 2007. After the latter release, Disney stopped producing and distributing under the label as it announced a focus on the company's core brands of Disney, Touchstone, ABC, ESPN, and Pixar. Michael Damon Eisner, Eyznr, born March 7, 1942, 2, is an American businessman, 3, and media proprietor who served as chairman and chief executive officer, CEO, of the Walt Disney Company from September 1984 to September 2005, 4, 5, 6. Prior to Disney, Eisner was president of rival film studio Paramount Pictures from 1976 to 1984, 7, and had brief stints at the major television networks NBC, CBS, and ABC. Eisner's 21-year stint at Disney saw the revitalization of the company's poorly performing animation studios with successful films such as The Little Mermaid, 1989, Beauty and the Beast, 1991, Aladdin, 1992, and The Lion King, 1994, a period known as the Disney Renaissance. Eisner additionally broadened the company's media portfolio by leading the acquisitions of ABC, a majority share of ESPN, and the rights to the Muppets franchise. Eisner also led major investments and expansion of the company's theme parks both domestically and globally, including the openings of Disney MGM Studios, now Disney's Hollywood Studios, in 1989, Euro Disney, now Disneyland Paris, in 1992, Disney's Animal Kingdom in 1998, Disney's California Adventure Park and Tokyo Disney Sea in 2001, Walt Disney Studios Park in 2002, and Hong Kong Disneyland in 2005. Eisner's final years at Disney were tumultuous. A string of box office bombs in the early 2000s, public feuds with former associates such as Jeffrey Katzenberg and Steve Jobs, and dissatisfaction with Eisner's management style culminated in the Save Disney campaign organized by Roy E. Disney, during which Eisner rapidly lost the confidence of much of Disney's board of directors. As a result of the pressure from the campaign, Eisner announced in March 2005 that he would step down as CEO prematurely, handing day-to-day duties to Bob Iger before formally leaving the company in September 2005. He went on to create the stop-motion animated sitcom Glen Martin, DDS, in 2009. Early life and education. Eisner was born to an affluent, secular Jewish family in Mount Kisco, New York. His mother, Margaret née Damon, whose family founded the American Safety Razor Company, was the president of the Irvington Institute, a hospital that treated children with rheumatic fever. 8. His father, Lester Eisner, Jr., was a lawyer and regional administrator of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. 11. His great-grandfather, 12. Sigmund Eisner, established a successful clothing company that was one of the first uniform suppliers to the Boy Scouts of America. 8. And his great-grandmother, Bertha Weiss, belonged to an immigrant family that established the town of Red Bank, New Jersey. 8. Eisner has one sister, Margot Friedman. 11. He was raised on Park Avenue in Manhattan. 8. He attended the Allen Stevenson School kindergarten through 9th grade, followed by the Lawrenceville School in 10th through his senior year, and graduated from Denison University in 1964. 8. With a bachelor's degree in English. 13. He is a member of the Delta Upsilon fraternity. 14, 15, and credits much of his success to his time at Key Waden Canoe Camp for Boys in Vermont. 8. ABC and Paramount. After 2 brief stints at NBC and CBS, Barry Diller at ABC hired Eisner as assistant to the national programming director. Eisner moved up the ranks, eventually becoming a senior vice president in charge of programming and development. In 1976, Diller, who had by then moved on to become chairman of Paramount Pictures, recruited Eisner from ABC and made him president and COO of the movie studio. During his tenure at Paramount, the studio produced films such as Saturday Night Fever, Grease, the Star Trek film franchise, Ordinary People, Raiders of the Lost Ark, An Officer and a Gentleman, Flashdance, Terms of Endearment, Beverly Hills Cop, and Footloose, and television shows such as Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Cheers, and Family Ties. 13. Diller left Paramount on September 30, 1984, and, as his protege, Eisner expected to assume Diller's position as studio chief. When he was passed over for the job, though, he left to look for work elsewhere and lobbied for the position of CEO of the Walt Disney Company. The Walt Disney Company. Following the deaths of founders Walt Disney in 1966 and Roy O. Disney in 1971, the Walt Disney Company narrowly survived several takeover attempts. Fr. Its shareholders Sid Bass and Roy E. Disney brought in Eisner as CEO and chairman of the board, and former Warner Brothers chief Frank Wells as president, to replace Ron W. Miller in 1984 and strengthen the company. Eisner brought in Jeffrey Katzenberg as Walt Disney Studios chairman. A couple of years after becoming chairman and CEO, Eisner became the host of The Wonderful World of Disney, making him the public face of the company as well as its top executive. Eisner was not a performer by profession, and studio management did not believe he could do the hosting job. After filming a test video with his wife Jane and a member of his executive team, which required multiple takes, Eisner came across as stiff and awkward. Disney executives were pretty much unanimous that the test was a failure. Eisner stubbornly persisted in the face of almost unanimous criticism. 17. Eisner hired Michael K., a director of political commercials for then U.S. Senator Bill Bradley, to help him improve his on-camera performance. 18. As a result, Eisner was well recognized by children at the company's theme parks, who often asked him for autographs. 19. During the second half of the 1980s and early 1990s, Eisner revitalized Disney. Beginning with the films Who Framed Roger Rabbit, 1988, which was brought to Disney by Jeffrey Katzenberg, and The Little Mermaid, 1989, a Ron Clements idea that Eisner originally panned. 20. Its flagship animation studio enjoyed a series of commercial and critical successes. Disney also broadened its adult offerings in film when it acquired Miramax Films in 1993. Under Eisner, Disney acquired many other media sources, including ABC, most of ESPN, Fox Family Channel, now known as Freeform, Baby Einstein, and The Muppets franchise. The ABC purchase in particular reunited Eisner with his former employer. In the early part of the 1990s, Eisner and his partners set out to plan the Disney Decade, which was to feature new parks around the world, existing park expansions, new films, and new media investments. While some of the proposals were completed, most were not. Those completed included the Euro Disney Resort, now Disneyland Paris, which was vastly over budget and had low attendance and was acknowledged by Eisner to be his real financial disappointment. 21. Disney MGM Studios, now Disney's Hollywood Studios, Disney's California Adventure Park, now Disney California Adventure, Disney MGM Studios Paris, eventually opened in 2002 as Walt Disney Studios Park, Disney's America. A high-profile failed project to establish a history-themed park in Virginia, and various film projects including a Who Framed Roger Rabbit franchise. However, the lackluster success of Disney's Animal Kingdom in the years after its opening, general stagnation in Disney's revenues, and various corporate issues and disputes would dampen Eisner's later career. In 1993, Katzenberg had lobbied to become Eisner's second-in-command, which would have meant moving Frank Wells from president to vice chairman, to which Eisner replied that Wells would feel hurt in that scenario. 23. Coincidentally, Wells died in a helicopter crash in 1994. When Eisner did not appoint Katzenberg to Wells' now available post, tensions arose between the two that led to Katzenberg's resignation. At the time, Eisner refused to pay Katzenberg his contractual bonus despite Katzenberg's offer to accept $60 million as a settlement, much less than was actually owed. 24. Katzenberg was forced to take the issue to court, who ruled in his favor. The final settlement was $280 million. 25. Katzenberg went on to found DreamWorks SKG, with partners Steven Spielberg and David Geffen. 26. Eisner recalled that Roy E. Disney, who did not like him at all. I forget the reason, but Jeffrey probably did not treat him the way that Roy would have wanted to be treated, said to me, "If you make him the president, I will start a proxy fight." 7. Eisner then recruited his friend Michael Ovitz, one of the founders of Creative Artists Agency, to be president with minimal involvement from Disney's board of directors, which at the time included Oscar-winning actor Sidney Poitier, the CEO of Hilton Hotels Corporation Stephen Bollenbach, former U.S. Senator George Mitchell, Yale Dean Robert A. N. Stern, and Eisner's predecessors Raymond Watson and Card Walker. Ovitz lasted only 14 months, partly due to outright hostility from Sandy Litvak and Steve Bollenbach and a lack of support by Eisner, 27, and left Disney in December 1996 via a no-fault termination, with a severance package of $38 million in cash and 3 million stock options worth roughly $100 million at the time of Ovitz's departure. 28. The Ovitz episode engendered a long-running derivative suit, which finally concluded in June 2006, almost 10 years later. Chancellor William B. Chandler III of the Delaware Court of Chancery, despite describing Eisner's behavior as falling far short of what shareholders expect and demand from those entrusted with a fiduciary position, found in favor of Eisner and the rest of the Disney board because they had not violated the duty of care owed by a corporation's officers and board to its shareholders. 29. Save Disney campaign and retirement. Despite his record of success while serving as president, CEO, and chairman of the Walt Disney Company, Eisner was also known for his habit of integrating much of his Paramount films with Disney. These moves were seen as unfavorable and led to Eisner's isolation from other Disney executives by 1995. 30. On November 30, 2003, Roy E. Disney, the son and nephew of co-founders Roy O. Disney and Walt Disney, respectively, resigned from his positions as Disney vice chairman and chairman of Walt Disney Feature Animation. His reasons for resigning was his feeling that there was too much micromanagement within the studio, flops with the ABC television network, the company's growing timidity in the theme park business, the Walt Disney Company turning into a rapacious, soulless company, Eisner's refusal to establish a clear succession plan, as well as the studio releasing a string of box office movie failures starting in the year 2000, such as The Emperor's New Groove and Treasure Planet, and the company's well-publicized distribution disputes with longtime production partner Pixar Animation Studios and its CEO Steve Jobs, with whom Disney had produced such animated feature film hits as Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Monsters Incorporated, and Finding Nemo, which were critically acclaimed and financially successful for both partners. On March 3, 2004, at Disney's annual shareholders meeting, a surprising and unprecedented 43% of Disney shareholders, predominantly rallied by former board members Roy Disney and Stanley Gold, withheld their proxies to re-elect Eisner to the board. This vote followed a stunning rebuke of Eisner and his executive and chairman practices by both the Institutional Shareholder Services and Gloss Lewis, a shareholder advisory service. 32. Disney's board then gave the chairmanship position to board member George Mitchell. However, the board did not immediately remove Eisner as chief executive. 33. On March 13, 2005, Eisner announced that he would step down as CEO 1 year before his contract expired, and handed off day-to-day duties to Bob Iger, who had been serving as Disney's president and chief operating officer, and had just been selected by the directors as the CEO designate. 34. Eisner did not initially promote Iger as a successor until after the board put pressure on Eisner to resign. To reporters and contrary to his actual intentions, Eisner remarked that I would not have agreed to leave if it hadn't been Bob. Because of governance, they wanted a big search and everything. And by the end of the search, it was clear that I was able to convince the board, our newly constructed board, that Bob was great. 7. Within Disney, though, Eisner was telling board members that Iger lacked stature. 35. On September 30th, Eisner resigned both as an executive and as a member of the board of directors, and, severing all formal ties with the company, He waived his contractual rights to perks such as the use of a corporate jet and an office at the company's Burbank headquarters. 19. While Eisner did much to stabilize and promote Disney in his early years as CEO, his performance in later years garnered much criticism. Beginning with the lavish, even reckless spending on Euro Disney, and continuing with the poorly planned and executed foray into the internet, and, perhaps worst of all, the acquisition of the Fox family cable network, each of which is a more than $1 billion mistake, Eisner squandered Disney's assets. This is even before considering the exit of Jeffrey Katzenberg, the failure to honor his contract, and the hiring and firing of Michael Ovitz, personnel and judgment errors, which, in the cost to Disney and the vitriol and publicity they generated, are without parallel in American business history. Eisner controlled and manipulated the board by keeping members isolated, preferring to communicate one-on-one, selectively doling out information, access, and benefits, and ruthlessly dispatching anyone who dared challenge him. In his book The Ride of a Lifetime, Bob Iger quotes Eisner answering criticism for micromanaging as saying, "Micromanaging is underrated." In January 2006, Disney's corporate headquarters in Burbank was renamed to Team Disney, the Michael D. Eisner Building in Eisner's honor. On October 7, 2005, Eisner was a guest host for The Charlie Rose Talk Show. His guests were John Travolta and his ex-boss, Barry Diller, 39. Impressed with Eisner's performance, CNBC President Mark Hoffman hired Eisner in early 2006 to host his own talk show, Conversations with Michael Eisner. The show mostly featured CEOs, political leaders, artists, and actors, 40, until its cancellation in 2009. Eisner was also an executive producer of the show, 41. In March 2007, Eisner's investment firm, the Tornanti Company, launched a studio, Vuguru, that produces and distributes videos for the internet, portable media devices, and cell phones. In October 2007, Eisner, through his Tornanti Company investment firm, partnered with Madison Dearborn Partners in the acquisition of Topps Company, the bubblegum and collectibles firm. He produced a mockumentary-style show about his takeover of the Topps Company, called Back on Topps. In January 2022, he sold Topps to Fanatics following its loss of the Major League Baseball licensing rights. 42. His investment firm has funded the critically acclaimed Netflix series BoJack Horseman. 43. In addition to BoJack Horseman, Eisner's The Tornanti Company has continued producing adult animated series for streaming platforms. His company produced Amazon Prime Video's Undone, 2019 to 2022, and Tuca and Bertie, 2019, 2021 to 2022 on Adult Swim. In August 2025, Eisner's Tornanti Company launched Long Story Short, a Netflix animated comedy created by BoJack Horseman's Raphael Bob Waxberg and produced in partnership with Shadow Machine. The show was renewed for a second season in 2025. 44. In March 2017, Eisner revealed that he was interested in a takeover of Portsmouth FC, a football club in the south of England that had fallen on hard times after years of poor ownership, before being taken over by its fans. The club released a statement on March 23, 2017, that Eisner and his Tornanti Company were in an exclusivity agreement. On August 3, 2017, it was confirmed that Eisner and his Tornanti Company had completed their purchase for a reported fee of £5.67 million. 50. Personal life. After college in 1964, he met his future wife, Jane Breckenridge, a Unitarian of Swedish and Scottish descent. 8. The couple married on July 22, 1967. 51. They have 3 sons, Breck, Eric, and Anders Eisner. Jeffrey Katzenberg, Katzenberg KTSMberg, born December 21, 1950, is an American media proprietor, film producer, and former voice actor. He served as chair of Walt Disney Studios from 1984 to 1994, a position in which he oversaw production and business operations for the company's feature films. Following his departure, he co-founded DreamWorks SKG in 1994, a where he served as the company's chief executive officer, CEO, and executive producer of its animated franchises, including Shrek, Madagascar, Kung Fu Panda, and How to Train Your Dragon, until stepping down from the title in 2016. He was also the producer and the voice for Rico in Madagascar films and the Moon Boy in the DreamWorks animation production logo in same variants of the movies. He has since founded the venture capital firm W&D Arco in the same year, which invests in digital media projects, and launched Quibi in 2020, a defunct short-form mobile video platform that lost $1.35 billion in 7 months. Katzenberg has also been involved in politics as an election donor. With active support of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, he was named one of Hollywood's premier political kingmakers and one of the Democratic Party's top national fundraisers. 2. He served as a campaign co-chair for Joe Biden's 2024 presidential re-election campaign and subsequently Kamala Harris's 2024 presidential campaign. 3. Early life and education. Katzenberg was born on December 21, 1950, in New York City, to a Jewish family, the son of an artist, and Walter Katzenberg, a stockbroker. 4. He attended the Ethical Culture Fieldston School, graduating in 1969. When he was 14, Katzenberg volunteered to work on John Lindsay's successful New York mayoral campaign. He quickly received the nickname Squirt and attended as many meetings as he could. 5. He went on to attend New York University for 1 year, before dropping out to work full-time as an advance man for Lindsay. Professional career. Paramount Pictures. Katzenberg began his career as an assistant to producer David V. Picker. Then in 1974, he became an assistant to Barry Diller, the chairman of Paramount Pictures. 4. Diller moved Katzenberg to the marketing department, followed by other assignments within the studio, until he was assigned to revive the Star Trek franchise, which resulted in Star Trek, the motion picture. He continued to work his way up and became president of production under Paramount's president, Michael Eisner, overseeing the production of films including 48 Hours, Terms of Endearment, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. 8. The Walt Disney Studios. In 1984, Eisner became Chief Executive Officer, CEO, of the Walt Disney Company. Eisner brought Katzenberg with him to serve as chairman of the Walt Disney Studios. 4. As head of the studio, he oversaw all filmed content including motion pictures, television, Disney Channel, and home video distribution. 4. Katzenberg was responsible for reviving the studio which, at the time, ranked last at the box office among the major studios. He focused the studio on the production of adult-oriented comedies through its Touchstone Pictures banner, including films such as Down and Out in Beverly Hills, 3 Men and a Baby, Good Morning, Vietnam, Dead Poets Society, and Pretty Woman. By 1987, Disney had become the #1 studio at the box office. 9. Katzenberg expanded Disney's film portfolio by launching Hollywood Pictures with Eisner and overseeing the acquisition of Miramax Films in 1993. 5. Katzenberg also oversaw Touchstone Television, which produced television series such as The Golden Girls, Empty Nest, and Home Improvement. Katzenberg was also charged with turning around Disney's ailing feature animation unit. Shortly after joining the company, he created some intra-studio controversy when he personally edited a few minutes out of a completed Disney animated feature, The Black Cauldron, 1985, while also delaying its release. 10-11. Under his management, the animation department eventually began creating some of Disney's most critically acclaimed and highest-grossing animated features. These films include The Great Mouse Detective, 1986, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, 1988, Oliver and Company, 1988, The Little Mermaid, 1989, Beauty and the Beast, 1991, which was the first animated feature to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture, Aladdin, 1992, The Lion King, 1994, and Pocahontas, 1995. 12-13 Unreliable source. Katzenberg also brokered a deal with Pixar to produce 3D computer-generated animated movies and greenlit production of Toy Story. 14. Concerns arose internally at Disney, particularly from Eisner and Roy E. Disney, about Katzenberg taking too much credit for the success of Disney's animated releases, 9/15, 166 to 168 in 1993. Katzenberg discussed with Eisner the possibility of being promoted to president of the company, which would mean moving Frank Wells from president to vice chairman. Eisner responded that Wells would feel hurt in that scenario and then, according to Katzenberg, assured him that he would get the job if Wells vacated the position. After Wells died in a helicopter crash in 1994, Eisner assumed his duties instead of promoting Katzenberg. 16. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Eisner said that Roy Disney, Walt Disney's nephew and an influential member of the Disney board, did not like Katzenberg and threatened to start a proxy fight if Katzenberg was promoted to president. 17. Tensions between Katzenberg, Eisner and Disney resulted in Katzenberg leaving Disney upon conclusion of his work contract with the company. In October 1994, 1815, 183, 185 Disney board member Stanley Gold said Katzenberg had been brought low by his ego and almost pathological need to be important. 16. Katzenberg sued Disney for money he asserted he was owed, and settled out of court for an estimated $250 million in 1999. 8. DreamWorks SKG. Katzenberg at the 34th Annie Awards. Later in 1994, Katzenberg co-founded DreamWorks SKG with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen, with Katzenberg taking primary responsibility for animation operations. He was also credited as producer or executive producer on the DreamWorks animated films The Prince of Egypt, 1998, The Road to El Dorado, Chicken Run and Joseph, King of Dreams, all in 2000, Shrek in 2001, Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron in 2002, Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas in 2003, and both Shrek 2 and Shark Tale in 2004. After DreamWorks Animation suffered a $125 million loss on the traditionally animated Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, 2003, 19. Katzenberg believed that telling traditional stories using traditional animation was a thing of the past, and the studio switched to all computer-generated animation, though some of their films would have some small 2D animated sequences. 20. Since then, most of DreamWorks' animated feature films have been successful financially and critically with several Annie Awards and Academy Awards nominations and wins. DreamWorks Animation. In 2004, DreamWorks Animation, DWA, was spun off from DreamWorks as a separate company headed by Katzenberg. 21. DWA held an initial public offering that same year in conjunction with a spin-off, which raised more than $812 million. 22. The live-action DreamWorks movie studio was sold to Viacom in December 2005. 23-24. Then in 2008. DreamWorks entered into a new agreement to begin distributing its live-action films through Universal Studios in 2009. 25. In 2006, Katzenberg made an appearance on the 5th season of The Apprentice. He awarded the task winners an opportunity to be character voices in Over the Hedge. Katzenberg has been an industry leader in promoting digital 3D production of film, calling it the greatest advance in the film industry since the arrival of color in the 1930s. When Katzenberg appeared on The Colbert Report on April 20, 2010, he confirmed that from now on every single movie that DreamWorks Animation produced would be in 3D and gave Stephen Colbert a pair of new 3D glasses. 26. NBC Universal acquired DWA in 2016 for $3.8 billion. Katzenberg left his position as CEO of DWA and was named chairman of DreamWorks New Media, DWN, consisting of DWA's interests in Awesomeness TV and Nova. 27-28. By January 2017, Katzenberg had stepped down from his position with DWN. 29. In February 2017, NBC Universal acquired a minority stake in Amblin Partners. the new parent company of the live-action DreamWorks studio since 2015, which reunited a minority percentage of the live-action DreamWorks label with its former animation division. 30. Wendy Crewson. In January 2017, the LA Times reported that Katzenberg had raised funds for a new media and technology investment firm called Wendy Crewson, 29. Quibi. In late 2018, Katzenberg announced his new video streaming platform, Quibi, created in partnership with former eBay CEO Meg Whitman, 31-32. The platform specialized in original, short-form content designed for smartphones. Whitman was hired as the company CEO and first employee. Katzenberg and Whitman created Quibi as a mobile-based Netflix. Their investors included Disney, NBC Universal, Sony, Viacom, and AT&T's newly rebranded Warner Media. 33. In late 2020, Quibi shut down after just over 6 months of operation. Katzenberg said the shutdown was due to a sudden change in how audiences consume media caused by the coronavirus pandemic, which did not align with Quibi's market niche, as well as a desire to return some funds to investors. 34-35. Of the initial $1.65 billion raised, Katzenberg said he was able to return $600 million to investors. 36. To lift Quibi employees' spirits. The Wall Street Journal reported that Katzenberg told them to listen to Get Back Up Again from the movie Trolls during a video call announcing the company's closure. 37. Political activities. United States President Barack Obama presenting the 2013 National Medal of Arts to Katzenberg. Katzenberg has been a prominent supporter of Democratic candidates for elected office since the Clinton administration and was an early supporter of Barack Obama. Reportedly smitten by Obama's speech at the 2004 Democratic National Convention, Katzenberg pledged his full support to Obama in 2006 if he decided to run for president. During his campaign, Obama praised Katzenberg for his tenacious support and advocacy since we started back in 2007. 38-39. Katzenberg was an avid fundraiser for Obama, doing so while much of Hollywood was still supporting the Clintons. The Wall Street Journal reported his efforts allowed Katzenberg to become an informal liaison between Hollywood and the Obama administration. 38. Katzenberg was reportedly Obama's top bundler and, with Andy Spawn, had collected at least $6.6 million in combined donations for both of Obama's presidential campaigns. 40. In 2012, Katzenberg organized a fundraiser for Obama's 2012 presidential campaign at the residence of George Clooney. The event reportedly set a record for presidential fundraisers, garnering approximately $15 million. 41. Some Obama campaign officials were unhappy with some of Katzenberg's requests, including that Obama stay and talk with guests at each of the 14 tables of the dinner. 38. In 2012, the Securities and Exchange Commission reportedly opened an investigation into DreamWorks and other movie studios for bribing foreign officials. It was opened after the announcements of a deal between China and the United States to increase the number of American movies released in China and the launch of Oriental DreamWorks, a Chinese offshoot of DreamWorks Animation. 42. News of the investigation broke shortly after Katzenberg assisted Joe Biden with brokering the Chinese movie deal, and Katzenberg had held a fundraiser for the Obama campaign. The timing of the events led Washington Post columnist Jennifer Rubin to question if the deal and fundraiser were related. 43-42. Katzenberg denied the existence of the investigation, saying that DreamWorks had never been asked for documents or to otherwise cooperate with an investigation. 44. In October 2012, Obama and Bill Clinton reportedly visited Katzenberg at his home in Beverly Hills for a private meeting with wealthy Democratic donors. The Obama campaign said the meeting was to thank supporters, but some members of the campaign finance committee said that it involved the pro-Obama Political Action Committee Priorities USA Action. Members of the White House press corps who had traveled to California with Obama were kept in the garage of Katzenberg's mansion, and one reporter called the meeting unusual. 45. Katzenberg, who had previously donated $2 million to Priorities USA Action, donated an additional $1 million to the PAC that month. Katzenberg donated $1 million to Priorities USA Action in 2015, which supported Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential race. In October 2016, he hosted a $100,000 per person fundraiser at his Beverly Hills residence with Obama as the main attraction. In 2018, following the Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, Katzenberg pledged $500,000 to the March for Our Lives gun control demonstration. 49. Katzenberg donated approximately $1.8 million to a PAC supporting Karen Bass's Los Angeles mayoral bid in 2022. 50. In 2023, Katzenberg was named as one of the national co-chairs of Joe Biden's 2024 campaign for re-election as president. 51. Katzenberg noted he would provide significant financial support for Biden's re-election. 52. In December 2023, Katzenberg hosted a fundraiser and, at the time, dismissed concerns about Biden's age, instead referring to it as his superpower. 53. In 2024, Katzenberg was an advisor to and co-chair of the Biden re-election campaign. 54. After Biden dropped out of the race, Katzenberg became co-chair of Kamala Harris's 2024 presidential campaign. 55. SPA/PIPA. When the White House announced its opposition to the Stop Online Piracy Act (SOPA) in January 2012, Chris Dodd, the former senator and head of the Motion Picture Association of America, the film industry's lobbying organization, contacted Katzenberg to obtain more information about the president's plans. 56. When Dodd reportedly asked him to intervene, Katzenberg declined. 57. But sought to soothe hurt feelings and lay the groundwork for a deal more friendly to Hollywood. Katzenberg's office contacted Obama and urged him to contact other studio chiefs in order to reaffirm their support. Obama would take the advice, making Katzenberg one of the few Hollywood executives working on brokering a compromise with Silicon Valley. 38. Recognition. Katzenberg was awarded an honorary Doctor of Arts degree by Ringling College of Art and Design in 2008, the first in the school's history. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences awarded Katzenberg with the Jean Herholt Humanitarian Award in 2012 in acknowledgement of his role in raising money for education, art, and health-related causes, particularly those benefiting the motion picture industry. The following year, Katzenberg was awarded the National Medal of Arts by President Obama. 61. At the 2017 Cannes Film Festival, Katzenberg was awarded an honorary Palme d'Or, the festival's highest prize. Cannes director Thierry Frémaux credited Katzenberg and Shrek with expanding the range of films considered at the competition. Katzenberg compared the distinction to the earlier Academy recognition. 62. Personal life. Marilyn and Jeffrey Katzenberg in 2010. Katzenberg married Marilyn Siegel, a kindergarten teacher, in 1975. They have twin children, Laura and David, born in 1983. 63. David is a television producer and director. 64. 65. Katzenberg and his wife have been highly active in charitable causes. They donated the multi-million-dollar Katzenberg Center to Boston University's College of General Studies, citing that the school gave their two children the love of education. 66. They also donated the Marilyn and Jeffrey Katzenberg Center for Animation at the University of Southern California. Katzenberg sits on the board of directors of multiple organizations, including the Motion Picture and Television Fund, Geffen Playhouse, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, AIDS Project Los Angeles, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, California Institute of the Arts, Simon Wiesenthal Center, and the USC School of Cinematic Arts. In 2008, Katzenberg founded the DreamWorks Animation Academy in partnership with Inner City Arts, a Los Angeles-based art education nonprofit organization, to provide inner-city students with instruction in digital media production. Touchstone Pictures was an American film production label of Walt Disney Studios, founded and owned by the Walt Disney Company. Feature films released under the Touchstone label were produced and financed by Walt Disney Studios and featured more mature themes targeted at adult audiences than typical Walt Disney Pictures films. 3-4 As such, Touchstone was merely a pseudonym label for the studio and did not exist as a distinct business operation. 1. Established on February 15, 1984, 5. By then Disney CEO Ron W. Miller as Touchstone Films. Touchstone operated as an active film production division of Disney during the mid-1980s through the early 2010s, releasing a majority of the studio's PG-13 and R-rated films. In 2009, Disney entered into a 5-year, 30-picture distribution deal with DreamWorks Pictures under which DreamWorks Productions would be released through the Touchstone banner. The label then distributed DreamWorks films from 2011 to 2016. 6-7. Following the release of DreamWorks The Light Between Oceans, 2016, the Touchstone label was retired on September 2, 2016. Due to the increased public assumption that Disney films were aimed at children and families, films produced by Walt Disney Productions began to falter at the box office. 5. This began in 1975 with the release of Escape to Witch Mountain and its 1978 sequel. In late 1979, Walt Disney Productions released The Black Hole, a science fiction movie that was the studio's first production to receive a PG rating. The company, however, had already distributed via Buena Vista Distribution its first PG-rated film, Takedown, almost a year before the release of The Black Hole. Over the next few years, Disney experimented with more PG-rated fare, such as the horror mystery The Watcher in the Woods, the spy-themed comedy Condor Man, Citation Needed, and the Paramount Pictures co-produced fantasy epic Dragon Slayer. With Disney's 1982 slate of PG-rated films, which included the thriller drama Night Crossing and the science fiction film Tron, the company lost over $27 million. Tron was considered a potential Star Wars-level success by the production company. In late 1982, Disney Vice President of Production Tom Wilhite announced that they would produce and release more mature films under a new brand. Wilhite elaborated to the New York Times, "We won't get into horror or exploitive sex, but using a non-Disney name will allow us wider latitude in the maturity of the subject matter and the edge we can add to the humor." He stated that one of the first films that would be released under this new brand was Trenchcoat, a comedy caper starring Margot Kidder and Robert Hayes. Wink with a Frown 9. However, the new brand had not yet been created by the time of the film's release in March 1983, so it was instead released by Walt Disney Productions, but with no production company credited in the released prints. Disney registered a loss of $33 million in 1983, resulting primarily from such films as the adaptation of Ray Bradbury's horror fantasy novel Something Wicked This Way Comes, the horror comedy The Devil and Max Devlin starring Elliot Gould and Bill Cosby, and the dramas Tex and Never Cry Wolf, the latter a PG release that featured male nudity, which did well as the studio downplayed the film's association with the Disney brand. The company nearly went bankrupt when their first PG-rated animated film The Black Cauldron was released. Early years as Touchstone Films. Touchstone Films was founded by then Disney CEO Ron W. Miller on February 15, 1984, as a label for their PG films, with an expected 3 to 4 movies released under the label. Touchstone Films' first film was Splash, a huge hit that grossed $68 million at the domestic box office that year. Touchstone Films was a brand chosen from over 1,200 potential names. The runner-up name was Silver Wind. 5, 10, 11. Incoming Disney CEO Michael Eisner and film chief Jeffrey Katzenberg considered renaming the label to Hollywood Pictures, which went on to become a separate Disney film label on February 1, 1989. 12. The logo is often mistaken as a thunderbolt within a blue sphere. The intent is that the blue ball is actually the stone, while the yellow marking over it is the streak left behind by the stone's use. In 1986, Down and Out in Beverly Hills was another early success for Touchstone and was Disney's first R-rated film. It was followed in 1987 by Disney's first PG-13 rated film, Adventures in Babysitting. Disney increased the momentum with additional PG-13 and R-rated films with Ruthless People, 1986, Outrageous Fortune, 1987, Tin Men, 1987, and other top movies. 10. In April 1986, Touchstone films were licensed to Showtime/The Movie Channel for 5 years, starting in 1987. 13. Renomination. Touchstone Films was renamed Touchstone Pictures after the release of Ruthless People in 1986. With Touchstone Films, Disney moved to the top of box office receipts, beating out all the other major film studios by 1988. 10. On April 13, 1988, Touchstone became a unit of Walt Disney Pictures under newly appointed President Ricardo Mestres. 14. On October 23, 1990, Disney formed Touchwood Pacific Partners to supplant the Silver Screen Partners Partnership Series as their movie studio's primary funding source. With several production companies getting out of film production or closing shop by December 2, 1988, the Walt Disney Studios announced the formation of the Hollywood Pictures Division, which would only share marketing and distribution with Touchstone to fill the void. Mestres was appointed president of Hollywood. 12. On July 27, 1992, Touchstone agreed to an exclusive first-look production and distribution agreement with Merchant Ivory Productions for 3 years. 16. Following the success of the Disney-branded PG-13 rated Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl in 2003 and other films that in the 1980s and 1990s would have been released as Touchstone or Hollywood Pictures films, Disney weighed distribution of films more toward Disney-branded films and away from Touchstone, though, before 2016, not entirely disbanding them as it continued to use the Touchstone label for R and most PG-13 rated fare. 1. In 2006, Disney limited Touchstone's output to 2 or 3 films in favor of Walt Disney Pictures titles due to an increase in film industry costs. 17. Disney indicated scaling back on using multiple brands in 2007 with the renaming of Touchstone Television to ABC Television Studio in February and the outright elimination of the Buena Vista brand in April. 18. 16. On January 14, 2010, Sean Bailey was appointed president of live-action production at Walt Disney Studios, overseeing all films produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Touchstone Pictures. 2. DreamWorks deal and dormancy. In 2009, Disney entered into a distribution deal with DreamWorks Studios and repurposed Touchstone as a distribution label for DreamWorks films. 7-19. Disney provided $100 million in financing to DreamWorks Productions and an additional $75 million credit line if DreamWorks could not get additional equity funding. In January 2012, Disney was reportedly in the early stages of considering Touchstone's fate, including a possible sale. Following Disney's decision not to renew their long-standing deal with Jerry Bruckheimer Films in 2013, producer Jerry Bruckheimer revealed that he insisted on revitalizing the Touchstone label for production. Disney was uninterested, with studio chairman Alan Horn admitting that Touchstone's output had been reduced to only distributing DreamWorks films as those films were in the label's interest. 21. In addition to DreamWorks films, Touchstone also released non-Disney branded animated films such as Romeo and Juliet, The Wind Rises, and Strange Magic. By the end of the DreamWorks deal in August 2016, Disney had distributed 14 of DreamWorks' original 30-picture agreement, with 13 through Touchstone. The deal ended with The Light Between Oceans being the final theatrical film released by Disney under the Touchstone banner. Universal Pictures then replaced Disney as DreamWorks distributor. Disney retained the film rights to these DreamWorks films in perpetuity as compensation for the studio's outstanding loan. Following the release of The Light Between Oceans, the label became defunct. Since then, several other Disney divisions have produced or are developing television series and films based on previous Touchstone properties, such as Turner and Hooch, High Fidelity, 3 Men and a Baby, Sister Act, and Real Steel. For Disney Plus and Hulu, some well-known Touchstone Pictures releases include Splash, The Color of Money, Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Good Morning, Vietnam, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Beaches, Turner and Hooch, Dead Poets Society, Dick Tracy, Pretty Woman, Sister Act, Ed Wood, Up Close and Personal, The Waterboy, Rushmore, The Insider, Unbreakable, The Royal Tenenbaums, Sweet Home Alabama, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Prestige, The Help, War Horse, Lincoln, and Bridge of Spies. Its highest-grossing film release is Armageddon, grossing $553.7 million worldwide. Although animated films produced by Walt Disney Studios are primarily released by Walt Disney Pictures, Touchstone's animated releases include the original theatrical release of The Nightmare Before Christmas, Romeo and Juliet, The Wind Rises, and Strange Magic. 6 Touchstone films have received nominations for the Academy Award for Best Picture: Dead Poets Society, The Insider, The Help, War Horse, Lincoln, and Bridge of Spies. Through Touchstone, Disney's first R-rated film, Down and Out in Beverly Hills, was released on January 31, 1986, and was a box office success. Ruthless People followed on June 27, 1986, and was also very successful. Both of these pictures starred Bette Midler, who had signed a 6-picture deal with Disney and became a major film star again with these hits, as well as Beaches and Outrageous Fortune. One of the most notable producers of Touchstone films was Jerry Bruckheimer, who had a production deal with Disney from 1993 to 2014. Touchstone films produced by Bruckheimer include The Rough, Con Air, Armageddon, Enemy of the State, Gone in 60 Seconds, Coyote Ugly, and Pearl Harbor. Bruckheimer also produced several other films released under the Disney and Hollywood Pictures labels. Releases from Touchstone were distributed theatrically by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures and through home media platforms by Buena Vista Home Entertainment, branded as Touchstone Home Entertainment. Touchstone Television served as Touchstone Pictures' counterpart label for television programming, producing television series including The Golden Girls, Blossom, Home Improvement, Ellen, My Wife and Kids, Scrubs, Monk, Lost, Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy, and Criminal Minds. In 2007, the company was renamed ABC Studios as part of a move by Disney to realign its studios around core brands such as ABC. On August 10, 2020, Disney announced that it would revive the Touchstone Television brand as a renaming of Fox 21 Television Studios as part of its phase-out of the Fox brand from the studios it acquired from 21st Century Fox. At the same time, the existing ABC Studios merged with the previous iteration of ABC Signature Studios to form ABC Signature 3738. However, on December 1, 2020, Disney announced the revived Touchstone Television label would be folded into 20th Television 39. Subsequently, on October 1, 2024, Disney announced that ABC Signature would also be folded into 20th Television 40. Touchstone Records was a record label formed as a joint venture between Buena Vista Records and Touchstone Pictures in 1986. By the end of 2007, Disney's video game subsidiary Buena Vista Games had begun to produce material under its own short-lived Touchstone imprint. As is the case with its motion picture and television counterparts, Touchstone Interactive merely acted as a brand label of Disney Interactive and not its own entity. The only titles it released were a European release of Anno 1701, Dawn of Discovery in 2007, and the Turok video game in 2008. In the early 1990s, after having pulled their comic licenses from Gladstone Publishing and begun to create comics based on Disney properties themselves through the Disney Comics label, the company additionally considered an expansion into the burgeoning adult comics market. The expansion also included Hollywood Comics, modeled after Hollywood Pictures and Vista Comics, offering stories based on Disney's superhero and adventure films. Former DC Comics editor Art Young led the nascent effort, which was aided by his contacts within the British and American comic markets. The new label was dubbed Touchmark Comics, echoing the Touchstone brand used for films and television. 42. Proposed titles included Enigma by Peter Milligan and Sebastian O by Grant Morrison. The brand got as far as a promotional booklet given out at the 1991 San Diego Comic-Con. Before the idea could progress further, however, the so-called Disney implosion, the result of poor sales and aggressive overexpansion, forced the company to cut back on its comic book ambitions, and Touchmark was scrapped. Yun subsequently returned to DC and helped launch the Vertigo imprint in 1993, using many of the intended projects from Touchmark. The Walt Disney Company, commonly referred to as simply Disney, is an American multinational mass media and entertainment conglomerate headquartered at the Walt Disney Studios complex in Burbank, California, with Disney's New York operations, including ABC, are headquartered at 7 Hudson Square. Founded on October 16, 1923, as an animation studio by brothers Walt Disney and Roy Oliver Disney as Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio, Disney operated under the names Walt Disney Studio and Walt Disney Productions before adopting its current name in 1986. In 1928, Disney established itself as a leader in the animation industry with the short film Steamboat Willie. The film used synchronized sound to become the first post-produced sound cartoon, and popularized Mickey Mouse, 3, who became Disney's mascot and corporate icon, 4. After becoming a success by the early 1940s, 5, 6, 7, Disney diversified into live-action films, television, and theme parks in the 1950s. However, following Walt Disney's death in 1966, the company's profits, especially in the animation sector, began to decline. In 1984, Disney's shareholders voted Michael Eisner as CEO, who led a reversal of the company's decline through a combination of international theme park expansion and the highly successful Disney Renaissance period of animation from 1989 to 1999. In 2005, under the new CEO Bob Iger, the company continued to expand into a major entertainment conglomerate with the acquisitions of Pixar in 2006, Marvel Entertainment in 2009, Lucasfilm in 2012, and 21st Century Fox in 2019. In 2020, Bob Chapek became the head of Disney after Iger's retirement. However, Chapek was ousted in 2022, and Iger was reinstated as CEO. 8. Disney operates the largest television and film studio in Hollywood. 9. Walt Disney Studios includes Walt Disney Pictures, Walt Disney Animation Studios, Pixar, Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, 20th Century Studios, 20th Century Animation, and Searchlight Pictures. Disney's other main business units include divisions operating the ABC television network, cable television networks such as Disney Channel, ESPN, Freeform, FX, and National Geographic, publishing, merchandising, music, and theater divisions, direct-to-consumer streaming services such as Disney+, ESPN+, Hulu, and Hotstar, and Disney Experiences, which includes several theme parks, resort hotels, and cruise lines around the world. Disney is one of the biggest and best-known companies in the world. 10. In 2023, it was ranked 87th on the 2023 Forbes Global 2011 and 48th on the Fortune 500 list of biggest companies in the United States by revenue. 12. Since its founding, the company has won 135 Academy Awards, 26 of which were awarded to Walt. The company has produced films which have been featured on many lists of the greatest films of all time, and is one of the key players on the development of the theme park industry. The company has been public since 1940 and trades on the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE, and has been a component of the Dow Jones Industrial Average since 1991. In August 2020, about two-thirds of the stock was owned by large financial institutions. The company celebrated its 100th anniversary on October 16, 2023. One of Disney's first animated characters, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which Disney regained the rights to in 2006. The initial run of Oswald shorts by Disney has entered the public domain as of January 1, 2024. After producing Alice films over the next 4 years, Winkler handed the role of distributing the studio's shorts to her husband, Charles Mintz. In 1927, Mintz asked for a new series, and Disney created his first series of fully animated shorts, starring a character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. 19. The series was produced by Winkler Pictures and distributed by Universal Pictures. The Walt Disney Studios completed 26 Oswald shorts. 20. In 1928, Disney and Mintz entered into a contract dispute, with Disney asking for a larger fee, while Mintz sought to reduce the price. Disney discovered Universal Pictures owned the intellectual property rights to Oswald, and Mintz threatened to produce the shorts without him if he did not accept the reduction in payment. 2021. Disney declined and Mintz signed 4 of Walt Disney Studios' primary animators to start his own studio. iWorks was the only top animator to remain with the Disney brothers. 22. Disney and iWorks replaced Oswald with a mouse character originally named Mortimer Mouse, before Disney's wife urged him to change the name to Mickey Mouse. 23-24. In May 1928, Mickey Mouse debuted in test screenings of the shorts Plain Crazy and The Galopin' Gaucho. Later that year, the studio produced Steamboat Willie, its first sound film and third short in the Mickey Mouse series, which was made using synchronized sound, becoming the first post-produced sound cartoon. 3. The sound was created using Power's Cinephone system, which used Lee DeForest's phonofilm system. 25. Pat Power's company distributed Steamboat Willie, which was an immediate hit. 23, 26, 27. In 1929, the company successfully re-released the 2 earlier films with synchronized sound. 28, 29. After the release of Steamboat Willie at the Colony Theater in New York, Mickey Mouse became an immensely popular character. 29, 23. Disney Brothers Studio made several cartoons featuring Mickey and other characters. 30. In August 1929, the company began making the Silly Symphony series with Columbia Pictures as the distributor, because the Disney brothers felt they were not receiving their share of profits from Powers. 27. Powers ended his contract with iWorks, who later started his own studio. 31. Carl W. Stalling played an important role in starting the series, and composed the music for early films, but left the company after iWorks' departure. 32, 33. In September, theater manager Harry Wooden requested permission to start a Mickey Mouse Club at his theater, the Fox Dome, to boost attendance. Disney agreed, but David E. Dahl started the first such club at Elsinore Theater before Wooden could start his. On December 21st, the first meeting at Elsinore Theater was attended by around 1,200 children. 34, 35. On July 24, 1930, Joseph Conley, president of King Features Syndicate, wrote to the Disney studio and asked the company to produce a Mickey Mouse comic strip. Production started in November and samples were sent to King Features. 36. On December 16, 1930, the Walt Disney Studios partnership was reorganized as a corporation with the name Walt Disney Productions, Limited, which had a merchandising division named Walt Disney Enterprises and subsidiaries called Disney Film Recording Company, Limited and Lylde Realty and Investment Company, the latter of which managed real estate holdings. Walt Disney and his wife held 60%, 6,000 shares, of the company, and Roy Disney owned 40%. The Waterbury Clock Company created a Mickey Mouse watch, which became so popular it saved the company from bankruptcy during the Great Depression. During a promotional event at Macy's, 11,000 Mickey Mouse watches sold in one day, and within 2 years, 2.5 million watches were sold. 43, 38, 42. As Mickey Mouse became a heroic character rather than a mischievous one, Disney needed another character that could produce gags. 44. Disney invited radio presenter Clarence Nash to the animation studio. Disney wanted to use Nash to play Donald Duck, a talking duck that would be the studio's new gag character. Donald Duck made his first appearance in 1934 in The Wise Little Hen. Though he did not become popular as quickly as Mickey had, Donald Duck had a featured role in Donald and Pluto, 1936, and was given his own series. 45. After a disagreement with Columbia Pictures about the Silly Symphony cartoons, Disney signed a distribution contract with United Artists from 1932 to 1937 to distribute them. 46. In 1932, Disney signed an exclusive contract with Technicolor to produce cartoons in color until the end of 1935, beginning with the Silly Symphony Short Flowers and Trees, 1932. 47. The film was the first full-color cartoon and won the Academy Award for Best Cartoon. 3. In 1933, The Three Little Pigs, another popular Silly Symphony short, was released and also won the Academy Award for Best Cartoon. 3048. The song from the film, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, which was composed by Frank Churchill, who wrote other silly symphony songs, became popular and remained so throughout the 1930s, and became one of the best-known Disney songs. 32. Other Silly Symphonies films won the Best Cartoon Award from 1931 to 1939, except for 1938, when another Disney film, Ferdinand the Bull, won it. 30. 1934 to 1949, Golden Age of Animation, Strike, and Wartime Era. Three-story building with green stripes surrounded by some trees. The original animation building at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California, which they fully moved into in 1940. In 1934, Walt Disney announced a feature-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It would be the first cel animated feature and the first animated feature produced in the U.S. Its novelty made it a risky venture. Roy tried to persuade Walt not to produce it, arguing it would bankrupt the studio, and while widely anticipated by the public, it was referred to by some critics as Disney's folly. 4950. Walt directed the animators to take a realistic approach, creating scenes as though they were live action. 5152. While making the film, the company created the multi-plane camera, consisting of pieces of glass upon which drawings were placed at different distances to create an illusion of depth in the backgrounds. 53. After United Artists attempted to attain future television rights to the Disney shorts, Walt signed a distribution contract with RKO Radio Pictures on March 2, 1936. 54. Walt Disney Productions exceeded its original budget of $150,000 for Snow White by 10 times. Its production eventually cost the company $1.5 million. The company's third feature, Fantasia, 1940, introduced groundbreaking advancements in cinema technology, chiefly Fantasound, an early surround sound system, making it the first commercial film to be shown in stereo. However, Fantasia similarly performed poorly at the box office. 63, 64, 65. In 1941, the company experienced a major setback when 300 of its 800 animators, led by one of the top animators, Art Babbitt, went on strike for 5 weeks for unionization and higher pay. Walt Disney publicly accused the strikers of being party to a communist conspiracy and fired many of them, including some of the studio's best. 66, 67. Roy unsuccessfully attempted to persuade the company's main distributors to invest in the studio, which could no longer afford to offset production costs with employee layoffs. 68. The anthology film The Reluctant Dragon, 1941, ran $100,000 short of its production cost, contributing to the studio's financial woes. Clarification needed. 69. Man dressed as a gaucho with someone dressed as Donald Duck. Walt Wright dressed as a gaucho next to Donald Duck in Argentina while on the company's South American goodwill trip in 1941. While negotiations to end the strike were underway, Walt and studio animators embarked on a 12-week goodwill visit to South America, funded by the Office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs. 70. During the trip, the animators began plotting films, taking inspiration from the local environments and music. 71. As a result of the strike, federal mediators compelled the studio to recognize the Screen Cartoonists Guild, and several animators left, leaving it with 694 employees. 72, 67. To recover from financial losses, Disney rushed the studio's fourth animated feature, Dumbo, 1941, into production on a reduced budget. This performed well at the box office, infusing the studio with much-needed cash. 73. After U.S. entry into World War II, many of the company's animators were drafted into the Army. 74. 500 United States Army soldiers occupied the studio for 8 months to protect a nearby Lockheed aircraft plant. While they were there, the soldiers fixed equipment in large sound stages and converted storage sheds into ammunition depots. 75. The United States Navy asked Disney to produce propaganda films to gain support for the war. And with the studio badly in need of profits, Disney agreed, signing a contract for 20 war-related shorts for $90,000. 76. Most of the company's employees worked on the project, which spawned films such as Victory Through Air Power, and others which included some of the company's characters. 77, 74. In August 1942, Disney released its fifth feature film, Bambi, after 5 years in development and performed poorly at the box office. 78 later, as products of the South American trip, Disney released the features Saludos Amigos, 1942, and The Three Caballeros, 1944. 74, 79. This was a new strategy of releasing package films, collections of short cartoons grouped to make feature films. Both performed poorly. Disney released more package films through the rest of the decade, including Make Mine Music, 1946, Fun and Fancy Free, 1947, Melody Time, 1948, and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, 1949. To try to recover from its financial losses, 74, Disney began producing less expensive live-action films mixed with animation, beginning with Song of the South, 1946, which would become one of Disney's most controversial films. 80-81. As a result of its financial problems, Disney began re-releasing its feature films in 1944. 81-82. In 1948, it began premiering the nature documentary series, True Life Adventures, which ran until 1960, winning 8 Academy Awards. 83-84. In 1949, the Walt Disney Music Company was founded to help with profits for merchandising. 85. 1950 to 1967. Live-action films, television, Disneyland, and Walt Disney's death. In the 1950s, Disney returned to producing full-length animated feature films, beginning with Cinderella, 1950, its first feature in 8 years. A critical and commercial success, Cinderella saved Disney after the financial pitfalls of the wartime era. It was its most financially successful film since Snow White, making $8 million in its first year. Walt began to reduce his involvement with animation, focusing his attention on the studio's increasingly diverse portfolio of projects, including live-action films, of which Treasure Island was the studio's first, television and amusement parks. 86, 87. In 1950, the company made its first foray into television when NBC aired 1 Hour in Wonderland, a promotional program for Disney's next animated film, Alice in Wonderland, 1951, and sponsored by Coca-Cola. 88. Alice was financially unsuccessful, falling $1 million short of the production budget. 89. In February 1953, Disney's next animated film Peter Pan was released to financial success. Wink with a frown. 90. It was the last Disney film distributed by RKO after Disney ended its contract and created its own distribution company, Buena Vista Distribution. 91. Several men looking at plans together. Walt, Center, showing the plans of Disneyland to officials from Orange County in December 1954. According to Walt, he first had the idea of building an amusement park during a visit to Griffith Park with his daughters. He said he watched them ride a carousel and thought there should be some kind of amusement enterprise built where the parents and the children could have fun together. 92, 93. Initially planning the construction of an 8-acre, 3.2 hectares, Mickey Mouse Park near the Burbank studio, Walt changed the planned amusement park's name to Disneylandia, then to Disneyland. 94. A new company, WD Enterprises, now Walt Disney Imagineering, was formed in 1952 to design and construct the park. 95. Drawing inspiration from amusement parks in the US and Europe, Walt approached the design of Disneyland with an emphasis on thematic storytelling and cleanliness, innovative approaches for amusement parks of the time. 96, 97. The plan to build the park in Burbank was abandoned when Walt realized 8 acres would not be enough to accomplish his vision. Disney acquired 160 acres, 65 hectares, of orange groves in Anaheim, southeast of LA in neighboring Orange County, at $6,200 per acre to build the park. 98. Construction began in July 1954. Walt formed a new company called Retlaw to handle his personal business, primarily Carrollwood Pacific Railroad. 99. To finance the construction of Disneyland, Disney sold his home at Smoke Tree Ranch in Palm Springs, and the company promoted it with a television series of the same name aired on ABC 100, the Disneyland television series, which would be the first in a long-running series of successful anthology television programs for the company, was a success and garnered over 50% of viewers in its time slot, along with praise from critics. 101 in August, Walt formed another company, Disneyland Incorporated, to finance the park, whose construction costs totaled $17 million. 102. Children wearing white shirts with their names on them and Mickey Mouse ears. Man dressed as Davy Crockett with a rifle in his hand, alongside two men in the background. Left to right, cast for the Mickey Mouse Club, which over 10 million children would watch every day, and Fess Parker as Davy Crockett in the show of the same name, which sold 10 million Crockett coonskin caps and over 10 million records of its theme song. In October, with the success of Disneyland, ABC allowed Disney to produce the Mickey Mouse Club, a variety show for children. The show included a daily Disney cartoon, a children's newsreel, and a talent show. It was presented by a host and talented children and adults called Musketeers and Musketeers, respectively. 103. After the first season, over 10 million children and 5 million adults watched it daily, and 2 million Mickey Mouse ears, which the cast wore, were sold. 104. In December 1954, the 5-part miniseries Davy Crockett premiered as part of Disneyland, starring Fess Parker. According to writer Neil Gabler, it became an overnight national sensation, selling 10 million Crockett coonskin caps. 105. The show's theme song, The Ballad of Davy Crockett, became part of American pop culture, selling 10 million records. Los Angeles Times called it the greatest merchandising fad the world had ever seen. 106. 107. In June 1955, Disney's 15th animated film Lady and the Tramp was released and performed better at the box office than any other Disney films since Snow White. 108. Disneyland opened on July 17, 1955. It was a major media event, broadcast live on ABC with actors Art Linkletter, Bob Cummings, and Ronald Reagan hosting. It garnered over 90 million viewers, becoming the most watched live broadcast to that date. 109. While the park's opening day was disastrous, restaurants ran out of food, the Mark Twain riverboat began to sink, other rides malfunctioned, and the drinking fountains were not working in the 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, heat, 110, 102, the park became a success with 161,657 visitors in its first week and 20,000 visitors a day in its first month. After its first year, 3.6 million people had visited, and after its second year, 4 million more guests came, making it more popular than the Grand Canyon and Yellowstone National Park. That year, the company earned a gross total of $24.5 million, compared to the $11 million the previous year. 111. Two older men looking into the camera. The Sherman Brothers in 2002. They composed many Disney songs in the 1960s. Disney continued to delegate much of the animation work to the studio's top animators, known as the 9 Old Men. The company produced an average of 5 films per year throughout the 1950s and 60s. 112. Animated features of this period included Sleeping Beauty, 1959, 101 Dalmatians, 1961, and The Sword in the Stone, 1963. 113. Sleeping Beauty was a financial loss for the company, and at $6 million, had the highest production costs up to that point. 114. 101 Dalmatians introduced an animation technique using the xerography process to electromagnetically transfer the drawings to animation cells, resulting in a transformed art style for the studio's animated films. 115. In 1956, the Sherman Brothers, Robert and Richard, were asked to produce a theme song for the television series Zorro. 116. The company hired them as exclusive staff songwriters, an arrangement that lasted 10 years. They wrote many songs for Disney's films and theme parks, and several were commercial hits. 117. 118. In the late 1950s, Disney ventured into comedy with the live-action films The Shaggy Dog, 1959, which became the highest-grossing film in the US and Canada for Disney at over $9 million, 119, and The Absent-Minded Professor, 1961, both starring Fred MacMurray, 113, 120. Teenage girl with blonde hair and a white dress looking into the camera. Black and white photo of a young man looking into the camera. Left to right. Hayley Mills and Kurt Russell were two of Disney's most prominent child actors in the 1960s. Disney also made live-action films based on children's books including Pollyanna, 1960, and Swiss Family Robinson, 1960. Child actor Hayley Mills starred in Pollyanna, for which she won an Academy Juvenile Award. Mills starred in 5 other Disney films, including a dual role as the twins in The Parent Trap, 1961. 121, 122. Another child actor, Kevin Corcoran, was prominent in many Disney live-action films, first appearing in a serial for the Mickey Mouse Club, where he would play a boy named Moochie. He worked alongside Mills in Pollyanna and starred in features such as Old Yeller, 1957, Toby Tyler, 1960, and Swiss Family Robinson, 123, in 1964. The live-action/animation musical film Mary Poppins was released to major commercial success and rapturous critical acclaim, becoming the year's highest-grossing film and winning 5 Academy Awards, including Best Actress for Julie Andrews as Poppins and Best Song for the Sherman Brothers, who also won Best Score for the films Chim Chim Cher. 124, 125. Black and white photo of a man posing and looking into the camera. Black and white photo of a man looking into the camera. Left to right, Dean Jones, the figure who most represented Walt Disney Productions in the 1960s, 126, and Fred MacMurray, who starred in Disney comedies in the 1960s. Throughout the 1960s, Dean Jones, whom The Guardian called the figure who most represented Walt Disney Productions in the 1960s, starred in 10 Disney films, including That Darn Cat, 1965, The Ugly Dachshund, 1966, and The Love Bug, 1968. 126, 127. Disney's last child actor of the 1960s was Kurt Russell, who had signed a 10-year contract. 128. He featured in films such as The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, 1969, The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit, 1968, alongside Dean Jones, The Barefoot Executive, 1971, and The Strongest Man in the World, 1975. 129. In late 1959, Walt had an idea to build another park in Palm Beach, Florida, called the City of Tomorrow, a city that would be full of technological improvements. 130. In 1964, the company chose land southwest of Orlando, Florida to build the park and acquired 27,000 acres, 10,927 hectares. On November 15, 1965, Walt, along with Roy and Florida's Governor Hayden Burns, announced plans for a park called Disney World, which included Magic Kingdom, a larger version of Disneyland, and the City of Tomorrow. At the park's center, 131, by 1967, the company had made expansions to Disneyland, and more rides were added in 1966 and 1967, at a cost of $20 million. 132. The new rides included Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, which was the first attraction to use audio animatronics, Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress, which debuted at the 1964 New York World's Fair before moving to Disneyland in 1967, and Dumbo the Flying Elephant. 133. 3 men at a table with microphones in front of them announcing something. Walt, Florida Governor W. Hayden Burns, and Roy announcing the plans for Disney World in November 1965. On November 20, 1964, Walt sold most of WD Enterprise to Walt Disney Productions for $3.8 million after being persuaded by Roy, who thought Walt having his own company would cause legal problems. When Disney started looking for a sponsor for the Florida project, Walt renamed the City of Tomorrow as the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, Epcot. 134. Walt, who had been a heavy smoker since World War I, fell very sick, and he died on December 15, 1966, aged 65, of lung cancer, at St. Joseph Hospital across the street from the studio. 135. 136. 1967 to 1984. Roy O. Disney's leadership and death, Walt Disney World, animation industry decline, and Touchstone Pictures. In 1967, the last two films Walt had worked on were released: the animated film The Jungle Book, which was Disney's most successful film for the next 2 decades, and the live-action musical The Happiest Millionaire. 137. 138. After Walt's death, the company largely abandoned animation, but made several live-action films. 139. 140. Its animation staff declined from 500 to 125 employees, with the company only hiring 21 people from 1970 to 1977. 141. Disney's first post-Walt animated film The Aristocats was released in 1970. According to Dave Kerr of Chicago Tribune, the absence of his, Walt's, hand is evident. 142. The following year, the anti-fascist musical Bedknobs and Broomsticks was released and won the Oscar for Best Special Visual Effects. 143. At the time of Walt's death, Roy was ready to retire but wanted to keep Walt's legacy alive. He became the first CEO and chairman of the company. 144. 145. In May 1967, Roy had legislation passed by Florida's legislatures to grant Disney World its own quasi-government agency in an area called Reedy Creek Improvement District. Roy changed Disney World's name to Walt Disney World to memorialize Walt. 146. 147. Epcot became less the City of Tomorrow, and was shelved and eventually transformed into another theme park. 148. After 18 months of construction at a cost of around $400 million, Walt Disney World's first park, the Magic Kingdom, along with Disney's Contemporary Resort and Disney's Polynesian Resort, 149, opened on October 1, 1971, with 10,400 visitors. A parade with over 1,000 band members, 4,000 Disney entertainers, and a choir from the U.S. Army marched down Main Street. The icon of the park was the Cinderella Castle. On Thanksgiving Day, cars traveling to the Magic Kingdom caused traffic jams along interstate roads. 150. 151. On December 21, 1971, Roy died of cerebral hemorrhage at St. Joseph Hospital. 145. Don Tatum, a senior executive and former president of Disney, became the first non-Disney family member to become CEO and chairman. Card Walker, who had been with the company since 1938, became its president. 152. 153. By June 30, 1973, Disney had over 23,000 employees and a gross revenue of $257,751,000 over a 9-month period, compared to the year before when it made $220,026,000. 154. In November, Disney released the animated film Robin Hood, 1973, which became Disney's biggest international grossing movie at $18 million. 155. Throughout the 1970s, Disney released live-action films such as The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes sequel Now You See Him, Now You Don't Wink with a Frown. 156. The Love Bug sequels Herbie Rides Again, 1974, and Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, 1977. Wink with a Frown. 157. 158. Escape to Witch Mountain, 1975. Wink with a Frown. 159. And Freaky Friday, 1976. 160. In 1976, Card Walker became CEO of the company, with Tatum remaining chairman until 1980, when Walker replaced him. 144. 153. In 1977, Roy E. Disney Roy O. Disney's son and the only Disney working for the company, resigned as an executive because of disagreements with company decisions. 161. In 1977, Disney released the successful animated film The Rescuers, which grossed $48 million. 162. The live-action/animated musical Pete's Dragon was released in 1977, grossing $16 million in the US and Canada, but was a disappointment to the company. 163. 164. In 1979, Disney's first PG-rated film and most expensive film to that point at $26 million, The Black Hole, was released, showing Disney could use special effects. It grossed $35 million, a disappointment to the company, which thought it would be a hit like Star Wars. 1977. The Black Hole was a response to other science fiction films of the era. 165. 166. In September, 12 animators, which was over 15% of the department, resigned. Led by Don Bluth, they left because of a conflict with the training program and the atmosphere, and started their own company, Don Bluth Productions. 167. 168. In 1981, Disney released Dumbo to VHS and Alice in Wonderland the following year, leading Disney to eventually release all its films on home media. 169. On July 24, Walt Disney's World on Ice, a 2-year tour of ice shows featuring Disney charters, made its premiere at the Brendan Byrne Meadowlands Arena after Disney licensed its characters to Feld Entertainment. 170. 171. The same month, Disney's animated film The Fox and the Hound was released and became the highest-grossing animated film to that point at $40 million. 172. It was the first film that did not involve Walt and the last major work done by Disney's 9 old men, who were replaced with younger animators.